Hello everyone, welcome to the Halal Vision Quality Academy. Halal Vision is a brand of 10K Consulting with particular focus on halal certification services, and this short video is brought to you by Halal Vision experts. This video is for tourism service providers that wish to obtain a Halal Tourism Certificate according to OIC SMIIC 9 Halal Tourism Services General Requirements Standard. In this context, we'll outline the steps you need to take for a Halal Tourism Certificate so that you have a very good idea on how the process works. Let's first talk a bit about the size of the halal tourism sector. If you do your research on this topic, you'll notice that different market research companies come up with different figures and different statistics. For example, according to the report of Future Market Insights, the size of the halal tourism industry in 2022 was 255 billion US dollars. And the research company expects the industry to grow by 4% every year and reach 365 billion US dollars by the end of 2032. Other market research companies may arrive at different conclusions depending on the methodologies that they use, so don't be surprised if you come across different figures. Now, there's one thing that all research companies agree on, however, which is the fact that Muslim consumers and tourists are becoming more and more demanding for halal-compliant tourism services. Therefore, it's quite normal for tourism service providers that wish to provide halal-certified tourism services to Muslim travelers to accelerate their efforts to obtain a halal tourism certificate. It's also noteworthy that this is not just a trend in Muslim countries, but also in non-Muslim countries such as Australia, Japan, South Korea, Spain, and France. So, what does it mean to provide halal tourism services? For most people, this relates to separating certain activity areas such as gyms and pools for men and women, and ensuring that food service does not include alcoholic beverages or pork. But it's actually more than that, such as rules on cleanliness, adequate room space for prayers, and even the selection of TV channels provided in the rooms, and a series of other services that are important for Muslims. Also, for most people, when you mention halal tourism, they tend to think only about accommodation. But the OIC SMIIC standard for halal tourism covers not only accommodation services, but also tour packages, tourist guide services, and other services and facilities such as catering, restaurants, wellness and spa centers, and healthcare services, and so forth. So, what do you need to do in order to obtain a Halal Tourism Certificate according to the OIC SMIIC 9 Halal Tourism Services General Requirements Standard? Firstly, you need to purchase the standard. Obviously, you need to examine the standard and learn its requirements. The OIC SMIIC 9 standard for Halal Tourism Services is a very short standard, which you can obtain from the official website of SMIIC. Note that the standard classifies halal tourism services into four types. The first is accommodation. And for accommodation, there are three different categories. Categories A, B, and C. Category A is for accommodation premises with advanced scale halal tourism services. Category B is for accommodation premises with medium scale halal tourism services. And Category C is for accommodation premises with basic scale halal tourism services. So, what does it mean by advanced, medium, and basic scale tourism services? In a nutshell, for each category, the standard provides a list of services which the accommodation provider should have and what they should not have. Also, some services are marked as recommended, which means that they're not mandatory but desired. There are some types of services and requirements in the list that must be met by all accommodation providers, regardless of the category. For these requirements, it doesn't matter if you're seeking certification according to category A, B, or C. You simply have to comply. For example, the requirement stating that the direction of the Qibla must be marked in every room applies to all categories. On the other hand, regarding pets, for example, if you're going for Category A certification, which is described as advanced scale, you cannot allow pets in the premises, and this needs to be an established rule. But the same requirement regarding pets does not apply to Categories B and C. One interesting rule is about serving alcoholic beverages. For Category A, Advanced Scale Halal Tourism Services, you're not allowed to serve alcohol beverages in the hotel restaurant or in the minibar in the rooms. But in Category C, the only requirement about this is that you have to have halal food options upon request, and you need to provide these options upon request. And you also must remove the alcoholic beverages from the minibar upon request. This is a very important flexibility provided by the OIC SMIIC Halal Tourism Standard to tourism service providers who don't only cater to Muslim travelers, but also serve non-Muslim travelers. The second type is defined as tour services, and this has two subcategories: tour packages and transfers. The third type is defined as tourist guide services, and the fourth type is a general classification of other services and facilities such as catering, restaurants, spas, health services, and so forth. So as I just mentioned, the first step that you need to take is to purchase the standard, learn what these requirements are for different categories, and decide which category you want to go for. Step 2. You need to provide trainings on the standard to your staff, because it will not be possible to implement the standard and comply with its requirements without providing this training to your staff. You also need to document that these trainings are indeed provided, because when you apply to the Halal certification body for certification, they will ask you about the trainings that your staff received, and they will ask you for documents to prove this. Furthermore, remember the categories of accommodation that I just mentioned? Categories A, B, and C? I mentioned that there are some requirements that apply to all of these three categories. And one of these requirements, which applies to all categories, is to have trained staff on awareness of halal tourism service principles. So it's very clear that you need to provide these trainings to your staff. And this is not all. The trainings that your staff should receive is not only limited to the Halal Tourism Standard itself. At the same time, for the implementation of this standard, your staff working in the kitchen and food preparation and storage sections of your facilities and in food service must also be trained on the OIC SMIIC 1 standard, which specifies the general requirements for halal food, as well as the OIC SMIIC 6 standard for places where halal food and beverages are prepared, stored, and served, as well as the OIC SMIIC 4 standard on halal cosmetics. The first two should be obvious, but why cosmetics? That's because accommodation services typically offer personal care and cosmetics products in their rooms. So yes, this is one of the trainings that the relevant staff in your facilities must receive. As Halal Vision, we'll be happy to provide you with all the trainings that you need on these topics. Step 3. You need to create and implement your system documentation. As you probably know, one of the most basic rules of management system documentation is do what you write and write what you do. You need to have a halal manual, you need to have written processes, written instructions, and all the other documents that demonstrate how you implement your halal compliance system at your tourism facility. Now, preparing a halal compliance system documentation might be a challenging process. If you need support in this, Halal Vision consultants are ready to help you out. Step 4 is about internal audits. When it comes to internal audits, once again, one of the fundamental rules of a management system is that you're required to establish and implement an internal audit system where you assign auditors, and these auditors carry out regular audits on how your halal compliance system is being operated and whether it is in line with the relevant standard. In other words, you need to plan, implement, and report your internal audits at regular intervals. And it's very important that these internal audits are carried out in accordance with the internationally recognized standard ISO 19011. When you apply to a halal certification body and when they audit you, without any doubt, they will ask you to show the documentation related to internal audits. So if you need help setting up your internal audit system, you don't need to look far because this is what Halal Vision does and we'll be able to support you in the process. Step 5. When you establish your system, meaning that you studied the standard, you received trainings, you decided which category is most suitable for you, and you established or updated your system documentation and started carrying out internal audits, now is the time to apply to a halal certification body. Of course, this halal certification body must be an accredited body according to OIC SMIIC 2, which lays down the requirements for bodies providing halal certification. You also need to be careful in preparing your application documents. The Halal certification body will typically request your system documentation, and even after you apply, they might ask you for additional documents. After confirming that your documents are sufficient, The auditors of the Halal certification body will conduct on-site inspections. In other words, they will visit your facilities in person and they will observe your practices on site. If you successfully pass the audits of the Halal certification body, then finally you get to receive a Halal Tourism Certificate. Congratulations! But remember that you also need to maintain your certified status. And under the OIC SMIIC system, Halal certificates are issued for 3 years, and the certificate is renewed at the end of 3 years. And also, the Halal certification body that issued your Halal tourism certificate is expected to carry out surveillance audits within these 3 years. And these audits can sometimes be carried out unannounced. Also note that in some cases, these audits may be carried out under the supervision of officials of the accreditation body. This is a very rare occasion, but it does happen because Halal accreditation bodies, which accredit Halal certification bodies, need to observe the performance of the Halal certification body which they accredited on site. And they need to check how the Halal certification body is performing its Halal certification activities. I hope this information was useful for you. As Halal Vision, we're here to provide all the necessary training and consulting services for you to obtain a Halal Tourism Certificate. We'll provide you trainings, we'll help you set up your documentation and internal audit systems. Basically, we'll help you get through the process as quickly and efficiently as possible. For more information, you can visit our website and contact us using the details on the screen. Have a great day.